Last time around, what we did is we were discussing programming constructs, right? Where we saw how to use if, elif, and else statements, and we also saw how to use while and for. So that is done. What we will now do is we will start to look at some of the other concepts which are related with programming constructs. So we are going to look at break and continue, and we are also going to look at range functions. So we have briefly seen range, but we are going to see it in a little more detail today. And then what we will do is we will move on to look at the string handling. How do we handle strings, and how do we actually manipulate strings? So this is what we will be doing today. All of these topics, and we'll try to finish these. Tomorrow onwards, we will start with the data structures, which is lists, tuples, sets, and dictionaries in great detail. And I'm sure we'll not be able to cover all of these tomorrow. We will need to break these into 2 sessions maybe. Lists and dictionaries are very important, so we will spend a lot of time discussing lists and dictionaries. So without any further delay, let's get started with the break and continue statements, right? So here is the work notebook, Jupyter notebook that we were using last time, right? And what we have covered so far is till here, I believe, right? Where we were looking at the nested for statements. So we were looking at as to how we can actually write a for loop, and then inside the for loop we can write another for loop if we have a requirement like this. And what we were trying to print is, if you guys can recall, we were trying to print the value of I and j, right? So let's quickly recall this, and then we can move forward, right? So what is happening here, right? If you look at the outer for loop, this for loop is running for all the values of I which are in the range of 1 to 5, right? So this is going to run for 1, 2, 3, and 4, because 5.
Manish, can you zoom in?
Yeah, sure. Better now?
Yeah.
Sure. So what happens is you can actually do a dry run to find out what is going to happen, right? And this is what we were talking about last time. So this outer for loop, right, for I in range 1, 5, 1, this is going to run 5 times, right? 4 times, in fact. This is going to run for the value of I, which starts from 1. Then the step size is 1, so it is going to change to 2. It is going to run for 3 and 4. Since 5 is going to be the value where the loop terminates, it is only going to run till 1 to 4, right? So what we can do is, let's try and write this outer loop as, so this is my outer loop, right? This is my, wait. Yeah, so this is my outer loop, and this is going to be for I in range.
Manish,
Yeah.
I think there is some noise from your end.
Okay. Is it not clear enough?
Yeah, no, it's fine.
It's fine now?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So for I in range, the values are going to be 1, 5. I'm specifying the step size as well, and then the next one is going to be for j in range 1, 5, and 1. And then inside the loop, what we are doing is we are printing the value of I plus j. This is a simple statement, 3-line statement, right? So what we will do is we will do a dry run, right, to see and find out without running the program what is the outcome going to be, right? And that is what we are going to do here. So this is my dry run table, and what we are going to do is we will start with here, and all the variables that we have, right? This is one variable, this is another variable, and this is the value that you are calculating to print, right? So all of these we are going to put that in a table, right? So we will create a table first, and we are going to create a table with 3 columns, and this is what you guys should all do to practice. So pardon me for the lines which are not coming up as straight, but then I intended these to be straight, right? So what are you going to put in there? This is going to be the value of I, this is going to be the value of j, and this is the value of I plus j, which is going to get printed, right? So how is my program going to run, right? My program is going to run from here, and what is going to happen? This is going to run 4 times for all the values between 1 and 4. So first time I is going to take a value which is the first value, so I is going to take a value of 1, and now this loop is going to run right from here till here for all the values of I is equal to 1, 2, 3 and 4. But first time when the program enters or runs the next line of code, what is going to happen is this is going to encounter another loop, right? Now what is going to happen here? There is a variable j here, right? And since this is also a for statement, this is also going to run multiple times, right? How many times it will run? It will run for all the values in the range 1 to 5. So this is also going to run all the statements within the loop, which is these 2 lines, for all the values which are 1, 2, 3 and 4. So the outer loop is going to run for all the values of I is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, and j, and the inner loop is also going to run for 4 times for all the values of j, which starts from 1 to 4, right? So how this is going to run? First time the loop will start and I will have a value of 1, right? This is what we have written here, right? I is going to have a value of 1. Now after this, when you reach here, j is also going to get a value, the first value. So j is going to have a value of 1. Now the next statement which is going to run is this statement, print statement. So I plus j is going to be 2. So you can say that 2 is going to get printed first. Now after this statement, where the program code is going to go back, or where the control of the program code is going to go back, this is going to go back again to the for loop, which is still continuing, right? So this inner for loop is still continuing because it has only run for the value of j, which is equal to 1, and it still has to finish it for 2, 3 and 4, which means the value of I will continue to be 1, and the value of 2 is now going to change from 1 to 2, right? So this is going to have a value of 2, and after this the print statement executes. So print is going to print 1 plus 2, 3. Okay, after this what will happen? The control will again go back to the for loop, and the for loop is just going to look for the next value of j. So the next value of j is 3, and all this while I is not going to change, so j is equal to 3. Then after this the control will come back to print, so it will print 4. The control will go back to here, it will look for the next value of j. The next value of j is 4, so I continues to be 1, j will be 4, and now when the print statement prints the value of I and j, this is going to print 5. Now what will happen after you exhaust all the values of j? The program control is going to go back to where? This for loop or the outer for loop? Because this for loop is done running for all the values of j.
Outer one.
So now the program code will go, the control of the program code will go back to here. And what will happen here? It has already run all the lines of code down below for I is equal to 1. So now it will do the same for I is equal to 2. So now it will take the value of I as 2, and it will again move control back to the next for loop. Now this for loop is going to again start with a value of j is equal to 1 and do the same thing for all the values of j, which is going to be 1, 2, 3 and 4. So how this is going to run? I'm just pointing it at the code, and I'm just writing it here, right? So the first time it will be 1, and the value which is going to get printed is 3. I will be 2, j will change to 2, so the value printed will be 4. It will continue to be 2, j will be 3, and this is going to be 5. I will be 2, j will be 4, and what will print here is I plus j, which is 6. Now anyone can anyone tell me what will be the value of I now?
3.
So it will be 3, and it will again, the j will again start from 1. So it will be 4, 3, 2, 5, and so on, right? So the last value which is going to get printed is 4, 4, and the sum is going to be 8. And this is how you actually dry run a program code. And this is very important for you guys to actually do this, right? If you do this yourself, you will build more and more confidence on the logic that you build eventually when you write the code, right? So although this line, this program code is only 3 lines, right? This is just 3 lines of code. But when you look at, this is just 3 lines, right? But when you look at it, how many times the print statement is running? This is running 16 times. How so? Why so? Because this loop, the outer loop, right? The outer for loop is running 4 times, and the inner for loop is also running 4 times. So this print statement, which is inside the inner loop, and this inner loop, which is inside the outer for loop, is running 4 into 4 is equal to 16 times, right? And this is how actually you dry run a code. There are in total 16 values which are going to get printed here. If you look at the output, you will get 16 values. What if my outer loop was running, let's say 10 times, and my inner loop was running 4 times? How many values would have gotten printed here?
40.
So it will be 10 into 4, 40, simple. And this is how actually you can do it yourself, right? So I think guys, with this you will have ample idea as to how to do dry run, and this is very important for you to actually do this. So whenever you write any program code, it is important for you to actually run the code and see it yourself, but it is also important, equally important for you to do the dry run, and this is how you will build more confidence. So do these, this is very important, and we will now move on, right? Quickly, let's check. Is my last printed value 8? Yes, this is 8. Is my total number of values 16? So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 12, and 4, 16. So total 16 values are printed, and then you can quickly change it as well, right? If you change it to, let's say, 1 to 10, 1 to 11, which means this loop is going to run 10 times, and let's say change it to 3, which means this loop is going to run 2 times, 1 and 2, right? So can anyone tell me what is the last value which is going to get printed? And let me change it to multiplication now. What is the last value which is going to get printed now?
20.
13.
30, 30?
It's 20.
13.
30,
1 3.
1 3, okay. 1 3, someone says 20, 20.
So it's a plus. Okay. Oh, sorry. It's a asterisk. Okay.
So I've changed it to
30 only.
30. Okay. So I have two answers, 20 and 30. Anyone else?
Yeah, 20.
It will be 20, right? Because the end value for I is going to be 10, and the end value
Okay.
for
Sorry,
j is going to be 2.
2.
Right?
Correct.
So when you do this, it is going to give you 20 as the last value.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, I know this is deceiving, but then this is how it is in Python. You have to always ignore the last value. This is how it is. Cannot help it, but then I think as and when you repeat and do more hands-on and practice, it will come easy to you guys as well. So alright guys, I think that is, and this is an example of this is called nesting loops, right? What does it mean? It means that you are writing a loop inside another loop, The same ways you can do nesting of while loop as well. And it can also be the case where your outer loop is a for loop and inner loop is a while loop, and vice versa, where your outer loop could be a while loop and your inner loop could be a for loop. Because essentially we have already discussed that, you know, be it a for loop or a while loop does not really matter. Both are loops and both are used to execute the same line of code multiple times, right? When we do not want to rather keep copy pasting the same statement multiple times, we can use loops there. So this is an example of nesting loops, right? Now let's look at, we have already seen this, right? We have already seen while as well. So let's move forward. Let's look at what is a break and continue, right? So last time around we were trying to write a exit statement, remember? And it wasn't working. The reason it wasn't working is because exit is not supported in Python, right? When you do multiple language, this is a problem that you guys are going to face as well. You may mix the commands or functions or statements from multiple languages. So the statement which is supported here is a break statement, right? And when you do that, last time around what we saw is when we want to exit from the loop, right? While the before the exit condition of the loop is met, we can use a break statement, right? I'll show you what is happening here, right? So let's all do a dry run together and figure out what is happening here, right? So this is what the line of the code is there, right? This is the code, and wait, we can do a dry run together. This is the code, right? Yeah. So what is going to happen? I'm just creating a table. What are the values that we have? We have just I. So okay, we just have I. So I will create a table with one variable I, and I will take 2 more columns, and I'll show you why I'm taking 2 more columns, because we have 2 statements that we need to evaluate. I'm just taking 1 column for each of them. So the value of I goes here, and yeah, the value of I goes here. Then I have I less than 10. I have I less than 10, and I have I %7 is equal to 0, this statement to evaluate, right? So first things first, right? My I is equal to 1 is going to get executed, right? So what will happen when that executes? My I is going to have a value of 1. Okay. The next statement, I less than 10. What is going to happen? Is this true or false?
1 less than 10.
1 less
False.
than 10. 1 less
Yes.
than 10. True, right? So this is going to be true. What is going to get printed, right? So this is my
I equal to I plus 1.
this is my print statement, right? I will
Print I one.
print something as well. So what is going to get printed? It is going to print
One.
1, right? Now I plus is equal to 1. What is going to happen here? I is
2.
going to change to
I plus 1. Yeah.
I is going to change to 2. Now it is asking, so the next statement is if my I %7 is equal to 0, right? Now what is percent symbol? We have already seen this is modulus operator, right? When you do I %7, this is going to divide I with 7 and find the remainder, right? And check whether the remainder is 0 or not. So in a sense, we are trying to see if the number is divisible or 7 or not, right? When you divide a number by 7 and check the and check whether the number whether the remainder is 0 or not, this is only going to be true when the number is divisible by 7, right? Since this number is, and if the number is not divisible, the remainder is not going to be 0. What do we do here? What are we doing? We are trying to find the remainder of this division operation. So I'm trying to divide this number by 7 and see and find out what is the remainder, and checking if the remainder is equal to 0 or not. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to find out if this number I is divisible by 7 or not. Simple. So is 2 divisible by 7?
No.
It is not, right? So this is going to be false. And so when this is false, where will my control go? Well, will my control go to
Else.
break or will it go to else? It will go to else, right? So in this case, I'm saying continue, which means continue within the loop. Do not exit from the loop. We will exit the loop when this condition becomes true, right? So what is happening? My condition is false, so I will execute continue, and then continue. After continue, there is no line of code, so my control will go back to while, right? So okay, check again. Is I less than 10? Is 2 less than 10?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, true. So the program code will again print the value of I, so it will print 2, and then it will change the value of I to 3 because of I plus is equal to 1, and then it will again check if I is divisible by 7 or not, right? So is I divisible by 7? Is 3 divisible by 7? Is 3 divisible by 7?
False.
No. No.
False, right? So it will again continue, right? And this time around, the same ways it will reach a place where the value of I is going to be 7, right? In this case, let's say we have reached a place where by doing this, right, we have reached a place where the value of I becomes 7. So it will first check whether I is less than 10. Is 7 less than 10? Yes, 7 is less than 10. So in this case, this is going to be true. Then the value of this is going to be what? 7% 7 is equal to 0. Is it going to be true or false?
True.
True.
So this is going to be true for the first time when the value of I is 7.
7.
When this happens, the control will first move to this statement break. And what will happen? It will move
Exit.
the control out of the for loop, while loop. Even if this condition is still true, it will force break the control out of this while loop. And what do you think the last value which is going to get printed here?
6.
And actually, it is there. What is happening is the moment this becomes 7, I becomes 7, this condition becomes true, and in that case, the control moves out of the while loop, and that is what is happening here. It is printing till 6 and it is moving out. So continue is a statement which we use when you want to when you want the control to be within the loop, right? When you want the loop to continue. And break is a statement when you want the loop to when you want to exit from the loop. Clear? These are two statements that you can use within the loop. Right? Any questions?
No.
All right. So these are very simple concepts, break and continue, and you only need them mostly while doing a while loop. You can also use them with for loops. There is no compulsion as such, but then ideally when we use when is the time when we use or when we are required to use break? When we really do not know when my exit condition is going to get reached. Is this going to get reached before my loop terminates? Otherwise, normally, if that is the case, then we may need to use break statement. Last time around when we were trying to use break statement, we were trying to find out the nth Fibonacci number, or whether the number is a Fibonacci number or not. That is where we were using it, because we really do not, Fibonacci series does not follow a even step size, right? It does not follow a even step size. When you run a loop to create a or to generate a Fibonacci series, it does not follow a even step size, right? And this is where the problem lies. We really do not know whether within the first 250 numbers, whether we will have all the 15 Fibonacci series numbers or not. And this is where the problem lies. So this is very sparingly used, guys, but this is also a very important concept that you should know. These are used in association with the loops, break and continue statements. I've already covered nested loops, so I'm just deleting this. Let me cover loops with lists. So we have already seen this briefly, but then let's look at this still. So the example that we have been taking so far, where there are fruits, right? So, and that's the same example we will take again. So languages is equal to C, C++, Java, Fortran, COBOL, so this is a list, right? This is a list, and what we can do is we can print the individual values in the loop or in the list. Oh, okay, sorry.
Use bracket.
Yeah. So what is happening? We can pick the individual values or individual items from the list, right, by using the index number. So what is happening? When you have this list, right, inside this variable named list variable named languages, you have an index number assigned to all of these items in the list, right? So this first item has an index of 0. The second item has an index of 1, and this, and likewise, right? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So altogether 7 items in there, right? If you need to fetch or print the value of the fourth position, right, then I need to actually write the index as 3, right? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, and 3. But what if, let's say, we want to process all of these, right, print all of these, right? Will it be nice or wise for me to actually write the same print statement 7 times and change the index values? Like, you know, change it to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Of course, we can do it this way, right? But then it won't be a wise thing to do, right? Instead, what we should be doing is we should be running a for loop, right? So how do we do this? For item in languages, print item. Now this is also giving you the same result. Now we will need to look at why this is happening, why it is actually printing all of these. So what is there in my languages variable, right? This is a list, right? We have created a list, and this list has these 7 elements in it, right? This is how it is defined. Now what we are doing in the for loop, we are just specifying instead of the range a list. See, ideally what do we do here, right? If you look at our historical syntaxes, we were writing the loop like this: for I in range 1, 5, 1. When we were doing this and printing the value of I, what is happening here? Now this range is going to generate a list of values, right, starting from 1 to 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and my loop is going to run 4 times, each time with the different values of I. The same thing is happening here as well. This is the list itself, right, and it has 7 elements. So what is going to happen? you can think of this as, and I'll quickly show you so that you become more comfortable as to how this is running. Instead of writing this, we could have written it this way as well. We could have written this as well. This will also run. See, this is running, giving you the same result. Now what is happening? For item in list, which means first this item is going to contain or take this value and print the same value. Now next time when the control moves back to the for loop, this is going to pick the next value, which is C++. And then the control is going to move back to the next print statement, which is print item, so print C++. So you see what is happening here? It is actually running as many times as the number of items in the list. And this statement in here, and if you look at this statement, right, what is the difference? Instead of specifying the whole list here, we are specifying the variable which has all the items in the list. So I think by looking at this statement, it should be very clear as to what is happening here. It is actually doing the same thing, which is iterating over the whole list, and that is what our topic is: loops with list. How do we loop across all the items in the list? This is what we are doing here. Clear, guys? So this is going to be easy. This is not at all difficult. The thing which is happening here is we are actually iterating through the list, and you can actually iterate through anything which has more than one values, right? Range is a function which is actually helping you generate that list here. Here what we are specifying is the list itself. Languages is a list that we have defined, and we are actually specifying that in the for loop so that it runs every time. This is for all the elements in that list. Clear, guys? So again, this is a very simple topic, not at all difficult, nothing much to worry about here. If you ever find it difficult to understand as to how this is iterating through the whole list, you can look at this piece of code, and this will actually comfort you a little. Same ways, yeah.
I mean, so like in range, we are defining the step, right? Step number.
Yes, of course.
Can we do with the same with list as well?
No, you cannot do it with the list, right? Because what happens in this case is every function, and this is what we are going to cover here, right? When we do after data structures, when we do defining functions, this will become more clear to you. Every function that we define, or any function which is already defined, they have certain set of parameters defined that you need to passing and returning parameters. So we are going to look at all of these here. You cannot specify any parameter which the function is not supposed to take, and you cannot even miss a parameter that is mandatory for you to call the function. So here when you run the function or when you run the loop using a list, it does not require you to specify a step size, but that is a requirement when you use a range function. And if you do not specify it, then it takes a default value of 1. So why I have been actually specifying it as 1 all the time, so that it becomes clear to you that it is, even if it is not specified, it is being considered as 1, and you always have an option of changing it, right? You can either change it to 2, 3, -5, whatsoever suits you. So to answer your question, Gajendra, there is no step function size or step parameter when you are using it with a list.
So if we need to print like C, then Java, then Cobol, then Python, I will skip one value by doing it.
So you will
define the function for this.
You can actually build a logic around it, right? So if you want to skip every one item, every alternate item, right? So what is your requirement? You want to print the odd elements or the even elements?
Like anyone.
Okay, right. So let me skip the even elements, right? Will that be fine? So what I will do is build a logic that helps you skip the even elements, right? So I will skip C++, I'll skip Fortran, I'll skip Pascal, right? So this is simple. What I can do is I can start with 1, and if I%2 is equal to is not equal to 0, then print, else continue, right? Wait, I plus is equal to 1. Is not equal to 0. What is happening here? So 1 is I is equal to 1, I%2 is equal not equal to 0, print I is equal I plus is equal to 1, 2, I%2 is not equal to 0, which is the odd numbers. So this is fine. C, Java.
And I is equal to 1, then if the modular code is not equal to 0.
Sorry?
So then,
Sorry?
if I is equal to 1, then here I 1 modular 2 not equal to 0, but print and print. After that, this statement will be fine, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so now what is happening is we are just checking the value of I. If the value of I is odd, then print. Otherwise, there is nothing in else, right? And every time we are incrementing the value of I. So you can do this, logically. Like I said, there are different ways of doing the same thing. So if the step size is not available, you can make your own step size. That is totally fine. If you want to increase the step size to, let's say, 2 instead of 2 to 3, then you can do this as well, right? And then here we will need to change it to I plus is equal to 2, I%3. So something wrong with the logic here.
I mod 2 equal to 0. If so.
No, but then we want to skip it to 3. So why don't you guys try this on your own, right? Try to increase the step size to 3. Try to implement that on your own, right? What I have done here is, and since this is logical, what we are trying to do is, trying to build some logic around it. You can actually see this for yourself. Actually, this is going to be much easier. So I'll leave this for you guys to handle, right? So for now, it is skipping every alternate value. So C, Java, COBOL, and Python, right? So alright guys, so with this we are done with the loops, and we wanted to look at two things here today. We want to look at break and continue statement, and we wanted to look at loops with this, right? So both of these are done, and one thing which I will again stress over here is that you should actually do the dry run that we have seen today and last time as well, right? This is very important for you to do yourself if you really want to be able to write a program code on a piece of paper and have that confidence that when you execute it in the console, this is going to run, right? So it is very important for you to do the dry run, create these dry run table by yourself. So with this, what we will do is we'll now move to string handling, right? And this is going to be quick, not much of a trouble here. What we are trying to do is so during when you need to write a program of code, right, you need to do a lot of string handling, right, text handling, and this is what we are going to do here. Some of the common operations that we do here is something that we are going to check. and learn as to how do we do this. So the first thing is, we have already seen this, right? How do you initialize a string, right? You can either write a text or a string, assign it to a variable using single quotes, or you can also do double quotes, right? The choice is yours. You can do either of them. You cannot mix, so you cannot start with a single quote and try to end with a double quote. I don't think that is going to work. So this is definitely not valid, but then you can either use a single quote or you can either use a double quote, right? So the choice is yours. So this is how you initialize a variable with a text value, right? And text is nothing but a variable or a set of characters, right? It has a set of characters. It can also have numbers in it, but primarily most of the characters, most of the items in this text should be characters. So there are two ways, right, that how we define it. So we have done that. Now the third way of initializing a text is, what if you want to specify a multi-line text, right? A multi-line text would be something where you write a text which has many lines in it, right, which spans across multiple lines. So when you need to do that, you can actually define it this way, right? You can specify it the same way, the way you write your comment statement. Exactly, this is what I want to bring out, right? When the way you comment out lines of code, the same ways you can specify a multi-line text as well. So this is an example of multi-line text. That's the text itself, and when you print it, this is actually printing you the same set of lines in the same set of text in multiple lines. This is how it is actually working. So simple, guys. There are three ways you can actually define it. Single line, you can specify single quotes. Single line, you can specify double quotes. And if you really want to specify multiple lines, then you can specify them as the same way, the way you define your comments, right? So this is it. Now that you have defined your text, right, what do you do with the text, right? Of course, you will need to fetch the value of the text. So far, what we were doing, we were printing the whole value of the text, right? But now what we are talking about is slicing the string, right? Now, what does slicing mean? So let's look at slicing, right, as an example. So what happens is when you define a string, right? When you define a string, that string is actually stored as an array, right? And what is an array? That's what we are going to look at, right? So let's say we define a variable, right? The name of the variable is text, and we initialize this as my space text. This is the variable, right? Now when you print, it prints the whole text, right? Whatever we have defined. But what happens is all of these characters are stored separately, right? And you can actually fetch them individually as well. Now, how is that possible? This value m has a index of 0. This value y has an index. I think I should write it this way, right? Let me write it differently. Let me write it a little differently. So what is happening is, so just for simplicity, I'm writing this text like this so that I can actually explain this to you, what is happening here, how this is getting stored, how a text gets stored. Now this is going to get stored as text 0, index 0. This is going to get stored as text index 1. There is a space in here which you should not forget. So this is going to get stored as text 2, this t is going to stored as text 3 and likewise, right? So I'll quickly write this and complete this. Text 4, text 5 and text 6. Now what does it mean? Earlier I had showed you an example of a memory block, right? And this is what is happening here. This is exactly what is happening here. So when you define text, this whole block of memory is going to get assigned to this variable, right? And since it has some number of characters, the way these characters are going to get stored is in the first memory location, this is going to store m, then y. Now this is going to be space, so I'm not writing anything here, right? This is space, and then t, e, x, t, right? This is going to be value 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. And since this text is stored this way, we can actually slice and dice across this, right? Now what does slicing mean, right? I can individually print the value of text 4, which would mean it is going to print e, or what we can also do is print the value of text 3 to 6. Now what is this doing? 3 to 6 would mean from here till 5. Now why I am saying 5 and not 6? Because every time you specify any ending variable, right, you have to always consider this as whatever value you have specified minus 1. So 3:6 would mean not 3 to 6, it would mean 3 to 5. So what this is going to print is t, e, x together. Now this is what we mean by slicing. Slicing the text, which means what we are trying to do is we can print a substring as well. A smaller chunk of the string is something that we can fetch as well using slicing. And the way we do it is by specifying a index here as an individual value or as a range. And so this is the only concept that we want to learn here. When you specify a range or when you specify a index number, you can actually fetch the value of individual memory locations for that text. And I hope this is clear to you guys. So let me get back to the program code itself and show it to you as to what is happening, right? So I already showed you how the memory is getting allocated to this variable, right? Now in this case, what is happening when you print the value of text 0? Of course, my indexes in Python starts with 0, so this is going to get printed as m, right? And if I change it to, let's say, 2, now nothing gets printed. Why is that so?
2 is blank, there is space.
Because of space.
Yes, so it is printing space, but then since it's a non-printable character, we are not able to see it. Perfect, good answer. We can do a 6, so this is going to print this small t, right? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. What happens when we do a 10? Of course, it gives me an error and it says string indexes out of range. The range should be 0 to 6 because of the length of the string, and 10 is not a valid number here, right? So we should be confined to the valid range itself, right? So this is an example of how you slice it, right? Now this was the easiest example, right? How can we actually print all the values inside the text one by one, right? So again, what we can do, we can use a range function, right, and put that inside the for loop, right? So what is it that we are doing here? For character in range. Now how many times you should run the loop? Anyone? This loop should run how many times?
Seven times.
total 7 characters, right? So if you
Six
want,
times.
it should run 7 times, right? Because you
7
need,
times.
yeah, you need to print all the characters individually, right? So it needs to run 7 times. But if my text is bigger, then what will you do? Will you keep changing the for loop because the text has become bigger? That is where you will not be required to, you should not be required to count the number of characters, right? You should not be required, right? Because it is not going to be an easy task. So for that, what we are specifying here is the length of text, right? So we are using a function, right? There is a function called len that we should that we are learning today, and when you print the len of, let me print it so that you become a little comfortable with this. So what is printed here? 7, right? Because this is what my text was. So it is printing 7. Now let me change it to this text. Wait. Let me increase the size of the text, right? So it is printing 21, right? So len gives me the length of the string, right? So what are we trying to do here? We are trying to run the loop as many times as the length of the text, right? And every time we are printing text, and here we are specifying the character position, right? So the character position will move from 0 to 6, because the length of the text is going to be 7, right? So this is going to be what? This is going to be the same as 0 to 7, right? Instead of len 7, what is going to get interpreted? This is going to get interpreted as 7, right? So this loop is going to run from 0 to 6, and what are we doing? This value of 0 to 6 is going to get replaced at this position, right, for this variable char. And how are we using char? We are using char as an index. So the first time it is going to print text 0. Text 0 we have already seen what it will be, m. Then it is going to print char 1. So char 1 is going to be y, and likewise. And that is how you see this statement is executing. See, here we can also write 7. This is also fine, but it will not run when you, it will not run for the whole text when you increase the text size. When you increase the text size, then also this is only going to print my text. But ideally, what should happen when you increase the text size, then it should run for all the text, and that can only happen when you change this parameter to length of text, right? Because now this is going to adapt itself based on whatever the length of the text is. So I'm just deleting it for now because that text in itself does not make sense. So the length is 7, and now this is printing all the corresponding values. Now let me take example of the other way, right? So this is what we have already seen here. Now we are going to see the range while slicing, right? 3 to 6. How is that working? So see it yourself. 2 to 5, right? When you do a 2 to 5, then 0, 1, it is actually starting from the space character, and 2 to 5, 0, 1, 2. Yeah, so 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. It is actually printing space TE. This is what is getting printed, but we are not seeing the space character here. All right. Any questions with slicing of strings? Anyone?
No question.
Okay. All right. So let me move forward and
When you do slicing,
sorry. Sorry.
When we do slicing, so like we have passed 2 to 5, so we print only I think 0, 1, 3 and 4, right?
So what is your question? You want to know why do we use slicing, or how do we use
No,
slicing?
I think Second number index is not a printable, so that's why it prints easy, right?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's very easy, right? Let me print something else so that you become sure that this is correct. See, I have printed the length of this. Although it is only printing 2 characters, the length of it is 3. What does it mean? It is also counting this space,
Right.
right? So yeah. Again, since it is starting from a non-printable character, you may get deceived. But then when you look at the length, it is actually printing. Plus also when you copy this over, it is also going to print that or copy over that space character. See, the space is also getting selected here. So this is fine. Let's move on to the string functions, right? So we have already seen one function which is length. So to manipulate the strings, there are many string functions, right, which are available. It is definitely not easy and advisable to go through all of this, but then you should have enough idea about the common string functions which are used, and you should know or have handy. The rest is, whenever required, you can look for the reference and find out. If you really need something which is not from this list, you can always refer the documentation and use that accordingly. So these are some of the common functions, string functions, that we will look at today, right? And these are very easy to understand. These are very self-explanatory. The first one is the len, length. What we will do is initialize text again. Text is equal to Python is fun, and len is equal to going to get printed as the length, right? So our this text is having a length of 14, so my index will start from 0 and end at 13, right? But if I need to specify the indexes, then I will need to specify them as 0 to 14, right? Because the last value is going to be ignored or missed. What are the other ones, right? The other ones are where you actually do certain operations on them, right? So text.strip, what it does is, it actually, to make you understand this, look at what is happening, right? It
Removing unwanted spaces.
yeah. So not from within the text, but only the preceding and the trailing ones, right? The ones which are before the text starts and the ones which are at the end of it. It is only going to remove them, right? So this is the print statement, right? Text.strip. See how
So
it has.
right?
Sorry.
It works as a trim function.
Yes, it works as a trim function. Yes, of course. So strip is going to work as trim in Excel. Yeah. So now the lower function is going to, if you look at this print statement, is going to lowercase all of these characters, right? So my P was capital and it has become small. So it is going to make all the characters as small. Upper function is going to make all the letters as uppercase. Title case is actually going to make all the initial capitals, right? So P capital, I capital, F capital. It is going to make the first character of each word as uppercase, and this is what a title case means, right? This is what a title case means. So these were easy, guys. I really don't think there is much for us to actually explain this. You just need to know what these functions does, and as and when required, you can just use them. There's nothing much to do here. A few things which are interesting and you may require them more often while doing any kind of a data pre-processing is when you need to replace text, right? So let's see how you can actually do this, right? So let's say from this text Python, I will need to change this. I am wanting to replace wherever there is fun, replace that with easy, right? So when we do this, how do we do this, right? We do this with the replace function, and we need to specify two parameters here. What is it that you want to replace, and what is it that you want to replace it with. So we are wanting to replace fun and replace it with easy, and that is what we are trying to do. We are trying to specify them as two parameters. So in this text, whenever you have fun, this is going to get replaced with easy, right? So let's see what is happening. See, this statement in here, Python is fun has become Python is easy, right? So this is what a replace does. Now the next one is a split function, right? Now what does a split do? So split function actually is used to split our text into multiple words or multiple text, right? It totally depends on how you want the split to work, right? The only thing that you specify is a split character. So what is the character that you want across which the text should be splitted, right? So what is happening here? We are specifying a space character. So this text here, Python is fun, is going to get separated or split into multiple items in the list, right? Whenever it encounters a space character, right? So we have space here, we have space here, we definitely have space here, and we have space here, right? So let's see what the split function does. So this is what the split function is doing, right? It has put in a blank space, then Python, then is, then fun, colon, and then again two blank items in the list. And what it has done actually, if you look at the split statement, it has actually created a list, right? It has created a list. So this is something that you need to actually note. Whenever you specify or whenever you use a split function, the outcome of a split function is going to get stored inside a list, right? This is big brackets, and all of these items in there separated by comma are the items in that list. So this is what is happening here. We could have specified any other split character as well. If you want to, let's say, split on n, then that is also possible, right? See what is happening, Python and fun. So it is actually taking all the spaces till O, and then after this, the moment you encounter the n, which is part of fun, it has split it again. So in total, this statement has two occurrences of n, and that is why we have 3 elements in this list. Since there were 2 occurrences of n, we have 3 items in this list, right? Make sense? Right. So let's move on, right? I mean, totally depends on what you want this to be. Ideally, you know, when you have a text, right, which has, let's say, you get a field, right, where you have multiple email addresses, and then all of these email addresses are separated by semicolon, or let's say colon. Then how do you separate all of these email addresses into different cells? How do you do that? For that, you can just use a split function. That is what you can do. And if you really want to see that example, what we can do is, we can see that example right here, right? So let me show that example to you. Emails is equal to wait, I accidentally pressed enter. abc@gmail.com. I'll take easy examples. Let's separate them by def@gmail.com, and let's say 123@gmail.com. Right now,
You need 4 months.
yeah, and now what I will do is print emails dot split, and I will specify colon. Okay. See what is happening? Right now, all of these emails are separated as items in the list, right? And what we can further do is we can actually, instead of printing this, you can use this as a for email in print email. So we got a text which has multiple emails, we separated them, and then we are iterating over that list which is getting generated, right? We already saw it will generate a list, right? And every time it is printing the email address, right? For simplicity, if you really want to see what is happening here, you can also print this as well. So it is not at all needed, but I am putting it here so that you know what is happening. When you look at this code and you run it yourself, you know what is happening here. So this statement is actually splitting this text into using this separator. So 2 separators it encounters, so it is going to actually give you a list with 3 elements. Clear guys?
Here actually it was separated by semicolons, because we have semicolons and @ symbols, special characters, different like that. Then how can
So in that case, you will need to do the split multiple times, right? So first time you will need to do the split. So one split function, like I told you earlier, right? Every function, right? In this case, the split function, right? Every function has a signature, right? And this is what we are going to probably see the next Saturday, right? When we see functions ourselves. How do we define our own functions? So every function needs to have a signature. Now, what do we mean by signature of a function, right? I'll show you really quickly as to what do we mean by a signature of the function, right? So when we actually call a function called split, then it is already defined. What is it that we need to pass here? So 2 things, right? The part, the part of the signature would be how many parameters, the number of parameters. So the number of parameters for split is definitely going to be 2, the first parameter and then the second parameter. Now the type of the parameters. What is the type of parameter this is going to take? This is going to be characters, right? This could be character, or this could be text. This is what it is going to be. So yeah, here in the first parameter you need to specify either a character or text, and in the second parameter also you need to specify a character and text, right? The third one would be the return value. So this is what you pass to the function, right? You pass 2 parameters and you pass either characters or text. But then when you call this function using text.split, then you are passing 2 things, right? You are passing so okay, this is not the correct example. This is not the example of split actually. This is the example of because split has only one parameter, right? What we are doing here is a replace example basically. So let me just change this. This is a replace example. Right, so this is a replace example. So replace takes 2 parameters, right? Now, what does a replace return you? You are passing something to a replace function, but then this is also giving you something back, right? What is it that it is giving you? So let's say you're calling replace and asking it for replacing fun with easy, then what is it doing, right? It is replacing fun with easy and giving you that text back, right? So what is the text that you were calling this replace function with? It was Python is fun, right? And when you are, and what you are getting back from the function is another text, Python is easy. Now why is that happening? That is happening because you are calling this function replace with this text and passing these two values, and what this function is doing, this is replacing fun with easy and giving you that value. So what are the parts of the signature of this function, replace function? It has two parameters. Both of these parameters needs to be either characters or text, and then the return value is also a text or character, whatever it is supposed to be. This is the return character. So all of these three clubbed together becomes the signature of any function, and you just cannot write the syntax out of this signature. If you need to call the replace function, and this is, we are just talking about replace function, when you need to call the replace function, you have to follow the signature. There is no way you can not follow the signature. If you do not follow the signature, then the replace function will not work. Same ways, when you split, right, when you call split function, then there has to be just one parameter, just one parameter. So the number of parameters in that case, in the case of split, would be, for split the number of parameters will be one, type of parameter will be character or text, and what it returns you again character or text. So the signature is going to be not entirely different, but somewhat different, right? The number of parameters are different, type of parameter is the same, return value is the same. Sure. So back to your question, you just cannot write the syntax based on how you think this is going to work. You need to just follow the signature, right? So your question was, if you need to split on multiple characters, right, then the solution is very simple. You need to call it multiple times. First time you call it with a separator, right? So this one, this is going to give you a list, this list, and if you really want to split the items within this list further, let's say you want to split them using the dot or the @ character, then you will need to call the function again using individual items from the list, and that is what you will need to do. So I'll say, Sajid, you do it yourself and you find it difficult, do let me know. You will need to call split multiple times. Now you will need to call the split and feed the individual values of what the split function has returned. So you'll need to feed this value first, after that, and then this value. And once you do that, then this is going to get separated into ABC, gmail.com, DEF, gmail.com, 123, and gmail.com, because the second time you have specified @ symbol as your split character. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you will, I mean, this is going to be very important, and we are going to touch base on this again when we write our own functions, and when we look at functions, in more detail in two classes from now. So we will need to be very mindful of the fact that every function has a signature. Now you will be liberated when you define your own function, which is called user defined function. You have a great liberty in how do you want to define this. It will be under your control. For things which are already defined or system defined, we will need to just follow that. Think of them as traffic rules, right? We do not have a say in there. We'll just need to follow them. So fine, guys, we have covered till there, and what we have done is split, right? Now the opposite of split, right? Now what is the opposite of split? We have split the strings. Now we would want to join or concatenate, right? So joining of strings is what is called as concatenation, right? This is a special term for strings. This is very easy. We can just use the plus symbol for this, and once we use the plus symbol with two integers, this will add them. But when you use the plus symbol with two text variables, or strings, then this is just going to join them, and this is what is happening right now, right? Python is one variable, is easy is another variable, and actually when we print text1 plus text2, then this is going to print text is easy, right? Which is what ideally it would mean when you are adding strings, right? When you add strings, there is no numerical operation happening here. You are actually joining the string one after the other. You can do the opposite as well, right? So we can do Python text2, text1. That is also possible. A few other things that you can do is, see what is happening. We can also specify a multiplication operation here, right? And when we do that, then see what is happening. It is actually duplicating it 2 times. So the same operators which we have seen earlier, the mathematical operations, they change their nature slightly when you are using them with strings, right? What we can also do is, let's say when we do 10, then this is going to duplicate it 10 times. Easy. So we can use either plus or multiplication operation to do concatenation. The next one is formatting of text, right? And this is what we have seen somewhat earlier, right? But then let's look at it again. What we can do is, right, let's say we have 2 variables, right? Name is equal to Amit Kumar and age is equal to 30, and I want to print a text, something which is similar to this. My name is Amit Kumar and I am 30 years old. But I do not want to write this statement as a print statement, but instead I want whatever name this variable contains to be printed here, and whatever age this variable contains to be printed here, right? And I do not want this to be a static statement. I want this to be based on these 2 variables. So how can we do this? See, I will have to actually use the concatenation operation that we have already seen, right? We can join 2 strings using a plus operator, and that is what we are trying to do here. So we first build this part of the text, which is constant, right? My name is not going to change, but what prints as the name itself should depend on the variable. So we are joining these 2. My name is, then the name, and I am, then we need the value of the age. So we are converting the value of, or the whatever value we have here as number into string and printing that value here, and then I'm printing a static text as years old. And this is what is making this statement print, right? Let me change it to Rajkumar, right? And see what is happening. The statement now changes. If I change it to, let's say, 20 years, then this changes here. And basically what we are trying to learn here is that at times we may have specific formatting requirements in the output, and part of it should be dependent on the variables itself, and for that we can use concatenation operation of the text as well as variables to print a statement like this. Clear? But there is an easy way of doing it, right? Now if you look at this statement here and this statement here, right, both of them are actually printing the same stuff, right? This code above and this code above, right? They both are printing the same stuff. The output is exactly the same. Now it is exactly the same, right? The output is exactly the same. But which is more readable? Now this statement is more readable or this one is more readable? Do let me know, guys. Anyone?
Second one.
The second one is more readable, right? Because we do not have a lot of plus here, which is going in there. Plus, we do not have a. Also do not have to convert the age value, which is stored as a number, into string, right? These are what we call as placeholders, right? So this is my first placeholder, and this is my second placeholder. And where are the values coming from? The values are coming from these values in the same sequence, right? So whatever we specify inside dot format, which is a function, the same variables are going to get replaced here. So think of them as name is going to get replaced here, and in this place the value of age is going to get put or replaced, right? So that ways the output is going to be the same, but writing this statement is much easier than this statement and more readable as well. So the choice is yours, guys. I mean, if you like this format better, you can use this. There is no better way of doing it. I'm just saying that, and you guys agree as well, that this is a little more readable and interpretable than the earlier one. Although both of them do the same stuff, nothing is like none of them are having any kind of advantage in terms of performance or whatsoever. It is exactly the same. So the choice is yours. I'll probably say that you should get used to this. This is much neater to write. This is much easier to interpret as well. So one last thing that we are going to see here is escape characters, right? Now what are these escape characters? And we are going to see a couple of examples. Although the number of escape characters are many, there is no way one can actually remember or memorize all of these, and this is not required as well. You should only be knowing as to what a escape character is and knowing some of the common ones. Anything which is required on top of or in addition to these, you can always find them, Google it out, and then use them. If you know how to use them, then this is not going to be difficult for you at all. So let's see what these are, right? So what we have seen so far is these, symbols, right? These symbols, the bracket itself, the double quotes, the equal to, these have a special meaning to the compiler or the interpreter, right? They're interpreted in a different manner. What if you want to print these, right? Let's see where the problem lies, right? Let's say you want to print this statement. So this gets printed, right? Because inside single quotes you have no special characters. No special characters. But let's say here, instead of single quotes, I want to print single quotes. I want to print single quotes here. So whatever text you see selected here, that is what I want to print. I want to print how to print, then a single quote character, and then character. Let me see what is happening here, right? When we do this, what will happen is, since single quote has a special meaning, it will be treated as if this string is complete here, and the interpreter does not really know what are you trying to do here with this text, right? So it will give you an invalid syntax error. But what we can do is, actually we can write this text here, and when we do this, that's where the magic happens. What just happened? I am able to print this single quote in my output. Now how is that happening? Because I have used a escape character. Now this is what is called as escape character, the forward slash. What happens with escape characters, it has a special property. Whatever character you have after the escape character, it overrides the special meaning of that character. That is what it is. So the special meaning of this character was that it is used to either start a string or end a string. Now that meaning has gotten overwritten over here. So this is now being used as a I'll say ordinary single quote character, and not as a single quote character which is used to either start a string or end a string. And that is why when you see here, this character, which is the escape character, is not getting printed, but this single quote is getting printed now. And that is what we can do with any characters which has a special meaning. If you want to print double quotes, you can print double quotes as well, the same way. So and then there are some other, escape characters as well. So I don't know if you guys know, but then /n, right, /n represents new line character. So let's say your text contains a single line, but you want to break the line in between, then you can specify /n. So when you specify /n, then actually this is going to break the line for you from here. So see, when you print this is actually going to break the line after contains, and then print the new line into a new line actually. What is happening here? See, /n has a special meaning, but if you specify a escape character right before any character which has a special meaning, then the special meaning of that character itself gets overwritten, right? So what is happening here? New line is not getting generated, instead /n is itself getting printed, right? So this was just an example. This is not actually which is what you will ever require, but then I just want to show this example to you so that you understand what actually happens when you use a escape character. Escape character overrides the meaning of the character right after this, the special meaning of the character right after this character. The other and the last one which I want to show you is /t. So what does it do? It inserts a tab character. So see, after contains, we have introduced a tab character. You can specify multiple tab characters if you want. That is also totally fine. So here we have 2 tab characters. You can specify 3. It's totally your choice how you want to format the text, and this is going to actually format the text based on your tab characters and new line characters whatsoever. So what we can do here is we can specify both /n and /tab. See what is happening? If you specify /t here, then actually this is getting moved to the first tab on the first line itself. It is not aligned because we have a space character here, and if you remove that, then this is going to get, wow, it should not, yeah, we have a space here. So these two are not getting printed, but then they are getting interpreted differently. This character here is generating the new line, and this character here is actually generating the tab. Clear? So that is it from my side, guys.